How's it going, Bat family? Welcome to a brand new installment in the Batman series. I am sorry today there is no weird ass intro on the front of this video. This one's a lot more of a makeshift one because, hey, yeah, the camera batteries aren't gonna last long, but I need to get a video out. And we are due for another installment in this series with your questions, theories, and we all discuss it together. You should know how this goes by now. There's been like 11 of them, but regardless, just in case you did miss it, I did do an installment in the Gotham PD series, which is, as you can imagine, the Gotham PD version of this. So if you haven't checked that out and you aren't aware, or maybe you are aware of the HBO Max spin-off show to the Batman, which is a prequel all about a corrupt cop in the battle for his soul before the Batman movie, as I just said, prequel, but in Batman Year One, then go to that video to nerd out with me about that. But I suppose without further ado, get your coffees, people, because I've got one right here. Which is really dumb, to be honest, because it's going to hit like 30 degrees and it's bloody boiling right now, and I've got softbox lights on and the windows are closed. So yeah, I'm going to feel very hot, but let's get into question number one. Now this is from, well yeah, I've got a couple of non-kind of questions, but as I kind of did in my recent videos, sometimes just the comments that aren't really posed as questions for these videos, I find fascinating as well, just through the vision, and you'll see what I mean. So S, interesting name, S, mysterious, I wonder what S stands for, says, I really hope in one of the sequels, the whole movie is set during Christmas time, or just winter. Would love to see a Gotham covered in snow, and just seeing Batman grapple across snowy rooftops would just be so cool, like the Arkham Origins vibes. I completely agree. Maybe every film of the trilogy has a different setting, since this film is set in fall, I think, and there's set photos showing that there's a flooding problem, which is cool. So it's like rainy, flooded Gotham, then sequel snowy, then final movie, I don't know, Heatwave Gotham, some shit. So yeah, no, I just wanted to highlight that one, just because, oh man, I would love a Tim Burton-y kind of, as you said, like an Arkham Origins snowy Reeves version of Gotham. I just wanted to put this imagery in your guys' minds, because I think with this series that we're doing right here, right now, it's all about vision. It's all about imagery and what we are all collectively, I suppose. It's like sitting in a little huddle circle and we're all having the same kind of, well, yeah, vision for the movie. And a snowy Gotham, I think Reeves would touch that eventually in the trilogy. Now, as for the time setting, you kind of mentioned it there. Is it kind of set in fall? Well, we do know that Halloween is in the movie. Obviously, that doesn't make it long Halloween-centric. It's got multiple inspirations, but we do know that it will span some time. We don't know how much time. I don't think it's going to go over a long period of time, just because, you know, the murderer is out there, kind of inspired, almost long Halloween-esque holiday, but it's the Riddler. And I don't think that's going to happen over a long period of time. So it's going to be a condensed period of time, as you said, probably towards the fall. And I do wonder if there's going to be any time, not massive time jumps, but like maybe there's like a little bit of a stall in the case where Batman's still trying to find the Riddler and the murders are indeed still happening. But yet again, I don't expect that if there is any kind of stunt in the case for Batman's detective work to take too long. It'd be cool if they did, I don't know, maybe Mr. Freeze being the result of why Gotham is snowy one year as well. Maybe he has some mad-ass device that causes something like that. Almost like what we saw in, if any of you are gamers out there, which I'm sure some of you are, what we saw during the Gotham Knights gameplay demo. I believe Mr. Freeze was doing something at the top of somewhere that was causing a very frosty environment. But moving on to Because I'm Batman says, what if the "you're becoming quite the celebrity" line is about Bruce in the newspaper saving a child from the car at the funeral? If that is the case, then there might be some dialogue about Bruce's public image of who he is and how the public could link him to Batman together as the same person. So to the latter of what you just said, I don't think that's going to be happening. Already kind of discussing the identity in the public about, oh, Batman, Bruce, I don't think they would do that. Like, that's not something to be done in the first movie, if at all, really. And that is the obvious choice. So this is really pertaining to my last part. I took this question from that just because I was talking about the whole theory that we've all been kind of snowballing ever since that one comment was made about how maybe Bruce actually doesn't reveal himself, but is still Batman within Gotham for like a year, and long story short, reveals himself around about the time of the movie, which I, you know, on paper initially thought, nah, I don't know about that, but no, I'm actually in love with it. So this is a response to that, and I think it's because, you know, I think about how the "you're becoming quite a celebrity" line from Bruce is maybe since, let's just say, around about the time of the movie, he does come out as Bruce Wayne and he's returned home after many, many years, but really he's been there for 1 year and 6 months just going hardcore Batman mode. That is what you're seeing there. You're becoming quite the celebrity line being about Bruce in the newspaper saving the child. I do agree in terms of that was, I think, everyone's initial takeaway, because in the trailer, when you hear Andy Serkis's Alfred say that, and then you see Bruce Wayne save someone in the church when like the DA blows up because of the Riddler's there, that would make sense, and it is the most logical, rational explanation, but I do still love the idea of that Bruce Wayne has been going hardcore Batman mode in this criminological experiment. I know I say that a billion times, and that's why he may, and I really would love this. I just really would love it so much. Ever since that comment was made, I just want it, to be honest, that Bruce, when he returned to Gotham, didn't want to actually reveal himself as Bruce, and this also fits in with the psychological aspect of the movie, with how like there's a duality to Bruce, but initially he's far from perfect. You've heard Matt Reeves spit all of this stuff out, so he's far away from learning that he needs to balance that side. All of that kind of stuff, you know, that you're all very aware about. I know you guys are. So it would make sense when Bruce first returns to Gotham, as in actually 1 year, 6 months ago, he just is Batman. Like, his whole persona is Batman. That kind of vibe, where he's like, I don't want to go out there and be Bruce because I'm going full on Batman. So he's in the Batcave, he's still getting food, he can still shower, obviously, but nobody quite knows he's returned to Gotham. So that's the vibe I'm kind of going for and what we've been discussing recently. But the reason why maybe he comes out to the public, and I'm not saying this is actually going to happen in the movie, by the way, it's just like another speculation thing. The reason why is because, well, maybe he's thinking, I need to do this because it might help me in the case. Because he's Bruce Wayne, think about it, maybe the Riddler might be interested in that. Maybe Bruce thinks, maybe if I go out there as Bruce Wayne, the billionaire freaking playboy linked to Thomas and Martha Wayne, all of these important figures in Gotham are dying. Maybe he thinks that might encourage the Riddler to maybe attempt it on him, or at the very least, even if that's out the window, you can imagine Bruce wanting to do something like that because it also gets him into closer public events, such as attending that cathedral mayor's funeral as Bruce Wayne. You can't exactly do that in the Drifter mode or the Matches Malone mode that we've seen him in, but that is also, let's just say, he has been hiding for 1 year, 6 months in terms of Bruce Wayne persona, and he's just been going out as Batman in his first 1 year and 6 months up until the events of the movie. Don't forget, he actually technically has been out in public, albeit just in his kind of hooded mode and like with the face mask on. I know I keep talking about that recently, but I'm just so in love with that vision that it would just be, it would suit so many things and it would line up perfectly. Just in terms of what I was talking about a second ago with the development of just Bruce in general, because this first movie is going to be heavily mental health focused. So obviously, assuming he has just been going ham in the Batcave and there has not been one public Bruce Wayne appearance since many, many years ago, despite him still being back in Gotham, him then announcing his return in Gotham in this movie, or just not even announcing, but just being seen in Gotham, that would force him to reckon with the fact that, oh, I've been in Batman mode, and as we all know, Batman is kind of the real identity in a lot of adaptations kind of thing. And now he's going to have to reconcile with the fact that he's going to have to try and be Bruce, but he doesn't quite know how to do that. And that's why maybe he looks so fierce at the DA who's about to blow up, because a lot of people make comments about that saying, well, isn't that kind of obvious if Bruce Wayne's just staying there and everyone else is running away? That I think it just fits in perfectly. But ramble over. I just freaking love that vision so much. So Naran, I'm not going to try and pronounce that because I'll probably butcher it, says, I read somewhere that the Batmobile is actually Thomas Wayne's car, which Bruce modifies in the Matt Reeves adaptation of Batman. Now, I think I've heard that before as well, and I think I've always intended to talk about it, but it's always slipped my mind or something, but I don't know if that was a theory or if that's somewhere a rumor or something, but yeah, that would make perfect sense. A lot of what Matt Reeves is doing is still not confirmed if the emblem is kind of like a modification of the gun that killed his parents. I still find that beautifully poetic. It's not the first time it's been done. Sometimes it's been melted down to kind of just put his armor behind the bat symbol. Obviously, this is a lot about Bruce's purpose, his journey. Obviously, it is very apparent to anyone why Batman becomes Batman, but in this movie, it's gonna have a lens on it, like 20,000 times optical zoom lens on Bruce's purpose. That reflects not only in his armor and maybe things in the Batcave, for example, that being Wayne Terminus, and then when it comes to an old Thomas Wayne car that's been modified, I really love that. I can imagine some people might think, but wouldn't people recognize that's Thomas Wayne's car? I don't know about that, because it's modified, but it's not massively, I mean, obviously it's massively modified, but, you know, it's still got the chassis, which I guess some people, as I just mentioned, might think, but isn't that Thomas Wayne's car? Some people might recognize that. Thomas and Martha Wayne still died a fair amount of years ago, and at the same time with that, there are multiple cars like that in Gotham, and there's still a lot of rich people out there. So I believe, even if this is the case, there is a modified version of Thomas Wayne's car. I would still love that at the end of the day. It's something that this early Bruce would do, and it's something that I think, as I said, will be reflected in many areas in the movie. I think there's a lot of surprises that will reveal to us with how many things pertain to his parents. Like, as I mentioned, with the Batcave is in the Wayne Terminal subway location. I think there'll be certain things that always give him motivation for his mission. I think he's always going to be staring at that, very deliberately so, to literally make him triggered and angry at every turn, because this movie is going to probably be the most angry we ever see Batman with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and that will be reflected through what you just mentioned, Thomas Wayne's car, if that is indeed the case, and many other things. And I absolutely love that, but I'd love to know your responses for what you think could also be constantly staring Bruce in the face as a reminder. And maybe he goes as far to put a freaking photo of his parents in the Batmobile on the dashboard. I'm joking, by the way, because obviously that would be kind of silly, because if somebody else went in the Batmobile, it's like, hey, why has Batman got a picture of Thomas and Martha Wayne in the car? But you know what I mean. I feel like there's going to be lovely intricacies and Easter eggy details like that to come. Because I'm Batman asks, Boba, do you think that the smaller characters like Firefly and Mad Hatter should get a chance in the spotlight in the GCPD show rather than the movies? Interesting question. I think there will, I don't know, it really does depend, and as I said, I recommend checking out my Gotham PD series, because I do talk about what I think it will follow. This is what I mean. I think it would separate itself from Fox's Gotham, where you did have a plethora of villains who were there before Batman, being tackled by Jim Gordon and the GCPD in general, and I don't think this would follow suit with that. So I also do think that Mad Hatter is, you know, more than big enough of a character to cause a big situation in Gotham for Batman in one of these movies to be a main villain. I'm not saying he is going to be, but I think he's perfectly capable. But Firefly, I would put him out of anyone, maybe someone that the GCPD series could tackle, but yet again, I really don't think that's necessarily the route the GCPD spin-off show and prequel to the Batman is going to be about. Captain B says, I think the movie will definitely be about Batman's mental health. At the DC fandom panel, Matt Reeves even said that he's not having the effect that he wants to have, which definitely could be hinting at an angry failure Batman, like we've seen a little bit at the beginning of Batman Ego. Also, has anyone else noticed that the coloring of red in the title pictures and also that scene in the trailer probably isn't just because it looks cool? Red is a color that psychologically makes you angry, and I feel that could be a massive part of the film. So yeah, kind of expanding upon what I was saying before, angry Batman, and red in this is definitely a deliberate choice, and you are correct when you say what you say there. And that specific scene of when Bruce seems to be punching something, I think that, you know, you could still speculate about what is going on there. Some people like to think, oh, maybe he's trapped in a Riddler room and he's trying to get out, that's why the cowl's on the floor, or maybe, I think it's, whatever it may be, I prefer to think of that scene as Bruce is just kind of punching something and he is angry. He could be training, but why would there be red? I don't know. It could be introspective. I don't know. All we know is that Robert Pattinson's Bruce is angry in that scene and he is kicking the crap and punching the crap out of something. I wouldn't say he's complete newbie, failure Batman, but definitely, as Matt Reeves said, he isn't having the effect he wants to have with this criminological experiment. I think when he came home to Gotham initially, I didn't think he thought it would be easy, but 1 year, 6 months in now, all of these problems are still happening, but that doesn't make him a quitter. As Matt Reeves said himself, like, Bruce's superpower, if he, you know, because this is the interesting thing about him, he doesn't have a superpower, but if there is one, as Matt Reeves said, it's his ability to endure. Like, he carries on no matter what. Bruce and Batman doesn't give up. He will keep going, and with that will come quite a bit of frustration, though. I cannot wait to see that. This upcoming one from JDG, it's something I've never been asked before, but it made me think about it for a minute. So he says, I just want to thank you for making these videos. They keep the discussion and hype alive, and your channel is like an HQ for the Batman fans to enjoy some much needed and enjoyable content for this film. Thank you so much. I really do love doing this, and I love that you guys love it as well. So my question, do you think that we will see Bruce Bruce's hair and demeanor change in this film? I know everyone has already gone over the whole emo Bruce thing, and I do understand that his mental state plays a factor into why he looks like he does. I don't know, like maybe, I mean, I have long hair. It doesn't make me like emo Boba, do you know what I mean? And it is also, we have had Bruce in the source material have this exact hair. But I'd like to see Pattinson look more like his characters in Cosmopolis or Life, as he looks like a perfect Bruce Wayne in those. So, will Bruce, his hair and demeanor change in this movie? I don't think so. I definitely think that we could see one of Robert Pattinson's look, you know, he doesn't normally have his hair super short. It's normally kind of like a mid-long to short kind of range, and I think it could look like that in the future of the movies. I don't necessarily think that his hair or his image in this movie is like a representation of his physical state of mind. You know, he just simply has, you know, longer hair, I think. And I think it looks pretty dope, especially in that last scene where it's a bit kind of, you know, sweaty when he takes the cowl off here. I get the emo Bruce jokes. I don't think the demeanor will change too much. I think that could maybe be shown symbolically through the growth by the end of the movie, because there's going to be a lot of things that he will have to dial and readjust in his career as Batman that we're going to really... That's what makes me so excited about this film in of itself, is we're at a stage of Batman, as what we've been discussing already, where he is imperfect. He has so much further to go, as Matt Reeves said. He's so far away from the Batman we kind of know. So it's a very raw and angry kind of Batman. And watching those adjustments happen over time is going to be something really special. And I think a lot of Batman fans are going to cherish through Matt Reeves' vision. And we get to see that through this movie. So, as I said, I think it will be more shown through the trilogy, like the overall change and growth of Batman. Like, he's always going to be an angry Batman, but there's going to be little dials and stuff adjusted, as I just said. So, demeanor in the end of this movie, I think maybe the biggest lesson that will be learned is maybe his code. I don't think he's come to Gotham as Batman to kill in of itself. So, he does already have a no-killing rule. But I think in this movie, for example, things that will be established, demeanors being changed, or the growth that will be seen, maybe, yeah, the hair, but that's another movie, but we'll be like, oh, I need to kind of dial back a bit. Like, I almost wanted to kill this person at some point in the movie. And that would be a great lesson and just thing for Bruce to walk that line throughout this whole movie. As I kind of said about demeanor as well, like maybe if they are correct about, or what I was discussing before, let's just assume he does reveal himself to Gotham, except he's been in Gotham the whole time. Like 1 year, 6 months, but he's only just coming out as Bruce Wayne. Then, like, yeah, he's gonna have to force to have a demeanor, a Bruce Wayne demeanor, which he's just not used to, because ever since his parents died, he kind of went into Batman mode. Imagine, like, if you put yourself in his position, you've just been relentless Batman mode, and then you come to Gotham, but you also have to pretend and blend in to be Bruce Wayne, which is someone you just do not resonate with anymore. That guy's been left behind. You've become the embodiment of vengeance. That is something I'm so excited to see Pattinson tackle. Even if he did appear as Bruce Wayne 1 year, 6 months ago, he obviously doesn't go out too much, so I still feel like we're going to get that shown across screen when he, like, attends, for example, the mayor's funeral, and we have the press asking him questions and whatnot. As for Bruce Wayne hair, though, I think, no, that won't change in this movie. But I could be wrong, but I don't think it will. And funnily enough, I should really have been more prepared and referenced this earlier, but Lava Cake, I love that name, says, Boba, what if the murders in Gotham are specifically the reason Bruce decides to present himself to the public finally? Exactly what I was saying, if that is true. Even if Matt Reeves doesn't do this, in a future Batman adaptation, I need this to happen just because it's perfect. Maybe he was just going to wait longer, but was basically forced to be public. There's only so much you can do as Batman during the nighttime after all, especially since it appears that some of the murders, or at least murder attempts, may occur during the daytime, like at the funeral. Note, also only so much you can do as his Matches Malone-ish persona, and I'm sure some random guy looking into stuff is suspicious. With the latter of what you said, I don't necessarily think his Drifter persona is suspicious, because Bruce wouldn't be so apparent into looking into stuff. It's more in the background, like when he's on the bike looking at the GCPD press conference. It's that kind of vibe. So I'm sure he can do his observations as the Drifter just fine. And all I have to say about this is, without repeating myself earlier, that would be just really cool if Matt Reeves does do this. Like, it's as I said, maybe Bruce thinks it's handy. If we're assuming that he hasn't come back to Gotham as Bruce Wayne yet, despite being in Gotham this whole time, that maybe the Riddler would be interested in the billionaire descendant of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Wayne. Maybe he's the perfect guy in his mind for the Riddler to murder. Even though that technically doesn't fit with the Riddler's MO, because he is going after people who are obviously blatantly corrupt. I mean, the mayor, he's dead. We don't have proof that he's corrupt, but come on. This is Gotham. That mayor died for a reason. Somebody else, the district attorney. Probably somebody who let so many cases slide. That's why the Riddler killed him. So why would the Riddler want to go after somebody like Bruce Wayne? So he probably, assuming that Bruce has only just come out to Gotham as Bruce Wayne, didn't do it for that reason. It is probably what you say to get into places as Bruce Wayne, which you can't get into, as you said, as a drifter or Batman. Even though technically Batman does go there to try and take off the bomb off the DA and then just gets blown back, which is going to be super interesting, because unless it is that funeral was held at a time when the sun is going down, I know that would be convenient, but Batman's in that building when they go to that cathedral. So, is it daytime? Which is pretty weird to think, like Batman's there in daytime. Now, Sean McGinn says Boba's a part of it too. Hey, Boba. Hey, Bubba. Reminds me of Bubba Gump Shrimp, but Bubba Gump Boba now. So, in this movie, also in the future, do you want them to stick with the Zodiac Killer-inspired look, or further down the line, do you want something more traditional? Love the videos. Keep up the great work. Thank you. So, yeah, I think it's exactly what Matt Reeves has said. The reason why the Riddler's got a Zodiac Killer design is A, just creative decision, like it looks amazing, and this is in the infancy of everyone. Riddler and all of these people, Catwoman, who's just wearing like a freaking beanie basically, but with those two little bits there, is symbolic to her future look. They will get their future looks, it's not right now. So with regards to Riddler, I can imagine at the end of this movie, gets locked away in Arkham or something like that. I don't think that necessarily means we're going to see Paul Dano's Riddler in this trilogy again. I think we could, in a Cillian Murphy type Scarecrow way, maybe like in the Nolan trilogy with how he kind of kept making little appearances in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, just for argument's sake, like to imagine a Riddler in the Reeves universe after he's been captured and the case is solved by Batman. In theory, yes, as Matt Reeves said, like in the future, or like, well, he said like they're just at the beginning of their stuff. So that would in turn mean in the future, Riddler would maybe not be as campy theatrical, wearing a literal green suit with question mark, question mark, question mark everywhere. But maybe it would be more like the Gotham, Fox's Gotham type, where Corey Michael Smith just wore an actual clean suit. And, you know, something like that. I can imagine maybe Paul Dano's Riddler gets more confident as the years go on, especially after the events of this film. But I don't know if we necessarily got to see that. But I do love the Zodiac Killer-inspired look. It's absolutely perfect. And at this point, the Riddler probably doesn't want to reveal his identity. But yeah, if and when he gets caught, which he will, you can imagine in the Reeves universe, hey, my identity's already exposed, so when I escape Arkham in the future of this Batman canonical timeline of Reeves' universe, well, why do I need to hide my identity? May as well kind of go out a bit confident. And he wears a green suit, maybe a top hat. I don't know, but yeah, like I imagine it's along that line of thinking. Now, yet again, probably should have mentioned this earlier, but Pizza Time said, I think when Alfred tells Bruce you're becoming quite a celebrity, it's referring to Batman. I think now in his career, Batman is well known and the hero in Gotham and not just an urban legend vigilante. Hence why you can see Batman walking among other police in a crime scene in the trailer. So yes, another very perfectly rational and logical explanation for what we were discussing earlier, and that could very much so be the case, because Andy Serkis's Alfred could have indeed been referencing, as you kind of said, that Batman has been here for 1 year, 6 months, but he has indeed been more of like a myth. Like the people do know about him, even in the Gotham PD show that's set during Batman Year One. Like he's riling up the police. That's literally the description of the show. So they're aware of him. This new vigilante, it's kind of pissing them off because it's like he's causing unrest, I believe the words were, in Gotham. But yeah, I think at the events of 1 year, 6 months in where this movie is, that comment could mean like, yeah, the city knows a lot more about Batman now. Maybe not the public, but at least maybe there's a specific event that happens where, for example, the perfect one being the cathedral, Batman's in there. That would reach Gotham daytime news. Like, that really would. Like, this Bat vigilante is trying to like, oh, we just heard a bomb go off. And like, there's a guy, you know, because he blows up. Maybe it's something like that. And that's when Alfred's like, you're becoming quite the celebrity when Bruce comes back in the cave after a rough, hard day's work, and maybe quite the unsuccessful one, since we know that the district attorney blows up. So yeah, that probably is the most likely one. I'm still holding out hope for, you know, also the Bruce Wayne persona side of, oh, he's only just announced that he's in Gotham despite being there the whole time. That would be really cool. It's like, oh, Bruce Wayne's becoming quite the celebrity because he's only just you know, people in Gotham, the press have only just learned that he's come back. But this is the more likely one, I have to admit, that Batman has been acting for some time, but the fact that he's on crime scenes now, the fact that he's in daytime trying to save a district attorney, the fact that obviously this killer is putting fear in Gotham, and especially the elite, and Batman's trying to solve the case, means that not only is the news going to have their eyes glued to this mysterious killer and the murder victims, but if that's the case, and Batman's at these locations, then the news is also going to have their focus on the Batman, because he's going to be front and center on a case that Gotham is paying a very close attention to at the same time. So yeah, probably more that, but I still have my desires. And I think I'm going to end here because it also pertains to something that Colin Farrell recently said. So Cole says, I would love to see Penguin be the main villain of the second movie after he rises to power, be kind of a gangster movie like The Godfather or Scarface. It would also be a good way to introduce Harvey Dent. We've spoke a lot about this before, but I very much so do agree. Colin Farrell's Penguin, as I said, power vacuum. His appearances in this movie will be few and far between, I'm sure, but it's also like, don't forget, the Penguin's out there. He hates being called the Penguin. He's called Oz, but as we know, he literally refers to himself as the Penguin later. This all comes back to the talk of what I said with how Matt Reeves said is everyone's early. And I find that fascinating how the Penguin goes from hating the Penguin name but then embraces it. I've always loved that when any adaptation touches on that. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this as well is because Colin Farrell said recently that he believes he has around 9 minutes of screen time in the movie, which may shock people because obviously this movie is probably going to be over 2 hours. Like, I don't think Warner Brothers is going to force Reeves to put it to the 1 hour 59 minutes or 2 hour limit, because he's got a lot of creative freedom with this, which was a condition of him signing on to make it. And so yeah, that kind of low-key surprised me, because I know Penguin wasn't going to be the main villain at all, and it is, all the focus is on Riddler, don't get me wrong, and we've got Falcone there, but I did expect him to be maybe set up a bit more, but the fact that now we've learned that he only has 2 or 3 scenes, and we know, we basically almost already know what all of those scenes are, even though I'm reserving obviously some for surprise, but in the trailer we see him obviously doing some criminal activity at this location that you're seeing on screen. Batman's there. We know there's a shootout. Batman arrives with the Batmobile. Penguin is going ham, trying to shoot this mysterious The Batman. We know that he gets chased in his own car, saying, this guy's crazy. And when the Batmobile smashes through like some kind of roadblock, if you know what I mean. Brilliant kind of Dark Knight Tumbler looking stuff there, as the Batmobile should be able and capable to do, stuff like that. And as you can imagine, if he figures that he's only got like 9 minutes in this movie, well, it makes me feel like maybe one sequence in the movie, and it would be pretty cool if it was the opening of the movie, is the Batman cracking down on what Penguin's doing there, maybe on behalf of Falcone, and he goes after him, and Penguin's having kind of like a fun time getting away. That's a majority of Colin Farrell's minutes in the movie, and then I guess the other few minutes of Penguin would be seen at the cathedral, where Bruce walks up the steps, he talks to Penguin, because Penguin, pushes him and holds him to a standstill, and then he's talking to him. Falcone is there, Selina's there. So I think more or less that's the content in the movie, but it also doesn't necessarily set him up as the main villain in the second movie, but it's that Oz Cobblepot is there. Let's just assume Falcone dies in this movie, maybe. Well, you can imagine who's going to fill that void, and it's Oswald Cobblepot. We're going to have to wait and see ultimately, but I found that super fascinating, and I might do a bigger video dedicated to kind of what Colin Farrell said, because it's, I can do a lot just based on a little bit of information, and already that has got me, just already talking about it here, I can say a lot more, but I think that's enough to give you guys, and, get your responses flowing down in the comments below in terms of what I said. So that is everything, guys. I'm going to end this video here. It's a little bit of a short one today. As I said, camera batteries are kind of running low. As always, leave your thoughts, responses, opinions on my theories and everything like that based on what I said, but also further questions for the next installment that should be coming next week, providing that I'm not too busy. As always, I'd really appreciate a like on this video, subscribe. Definitely check out the Gotham PD version of this that I did. If you haven't seen it already, I really do recommend that, because, it's literally linked to the movie, so I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on that, or maybe just aren't so aware of it. As for the hashtag this week, I have absolutely no idea, so just hashtag to prove that you got this far. And that is absolutely everything. Other than, actually, I do encourage you guys to check out the top pinned comment. A lot of people still don't do that, but if you do check it out, click on the show more, and you'll see links to follow me on Twitter. I really do recommend following me there. It's my most active social media. I do have Instagram for some random Ask Boba stuff, and if you want to support me even further, I do have merch links and Patreon and a join button on the channel. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, fellow Bat family, in the next video. Goodbye.